How many modifiers you never use in your Blender career? How about UV projection? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Creating this bat signal effect using UV projection. Here I have a new Blender project in Blender 3.1 beta. It's not necessary to have this exact version. Any recent version can be used for this effect. So let's start by quickly creating a cloud mesh. I'm just going to use metaballs for this. Duplicate, reposition, and scale them to create something like this. Okay, this is horrible for a cloud, but this will do the job. I mean, point of this video is UV projection modifier. Now right click and convert this to mesh. Okay, we have our projection surface. Now we need a projection source. For that, I add a spotlight. You can use any object. I'm only using spotlight to help visualize what's happening a little better. Now we need to make sure our projection surface, in this case our cloud, has UVs. Currently it has no UV maps. So to create one, I'm going to edit mode, top view, and now I hit U and project from view. No, let's use a project from view bounce. Now to create a material for our cloud mesh, add a texture. Make sure the texture coordinates set to UV. You can see our bat symbol wrapped around the mesh using the UVs we created earlier. I changed this back to RGB to remove these artifacts. So we got our projection source, projection surface, UVs, and the bat symbol, which we want to project. So now to do our projection, select the cloud mesh, go to Modifiers tab, and in this modifier section, select UV Project Modifier. Select our UV map and our projection source, the spotlight. Immediately you can see our texture tiled a lot. But look, when I double tap R to rotate it freely, you can see what it's doing. It acts like it's projecting from our spotlight's origin. Now if I hit R and double tap on Z, I can rotate the lamp on its normal Z axis, which will rotate our texture. So what exactly is happening? Let me try my best to explain it. You can see here how our UV vector is mapped. Main UV space is 0 to 1 range on both axes, X and Y. Everything else is what you see as styling. This modifier uses the location and the orientation of the source object to project the UV space to the surface. So what are the settings in this modifier? Here in UV map, we have to specify which UV map we need to project. If you have a textured model with a UV map, you can create and use a different UV map for this projection. These two settings, aspect and the scale, will only be available if you have selected the camera as the projection object. As the name suggests, it will take care of aspect ratio and the scale of the projection. Here you can set the projection objects or sources up to 10. If you have selected more than one projection object, each face of the mesh will look at those objects and choose which one is aligned to the face and also closer. By aligned, I mean it will look at where the negative Z axis of the projection object is pointing at. In default, both camera and lights in Blender are nicely oriented this way. That's why I used a spotlight earlier instead of any other object. What are the use cases of this? Well, not much actually, but I guess it depends. If you are making abstract stylized renders, you are probably able to use this in so many different ways, but the main use case probably will be hacks. If you want to fake something, this can be handy. So that's it. I hope you learned something new. Most of you probably never used this modifier before, so I believe this tutorial was helpful. But if you like to stick around a little more, we can make this bat signal a little better. To create the circular mask around the logo, I add a gradient texture and set it to spherical. To make this fit to our UV space, I offset them a little and scale them. No, you know what? I keep it like this and clamp it using a color ramp node. Then I multiply it with our bat symbol. Make it a little smoother by using B-spline method. Now to add some noise to the logo, use a noise texture and set the coordinates to object, because I don't want it to move with our projection. Multiply it with our logo. I can increase the contrast by using a color ramp. To blur our logo texture, I use a white noise and mix RGB node and add a touch of R and G to it. This will shift the texture a little bit. Let's add a noise to the texture as well. Now our bat signal is okay, but if we plug this to our volume, because this is our cloud, it's not going to work. Of course it's not, because it's not matching. So how do we create our cloud? Here in Eevee, the best method I found was doing it as two separate objects. Cloud mesh, which we have our bat signal, and the cloud volume. Let's rename this to cloud mesh. To create a cloud volume from this, add an empty volume object and add mesh to volume modifier. Select our mesh. I'll increase the density so you can see it better. Increase the voxel count for more resolution. In the render setting, enable volumetric shadows and decrease the tile size for more resolution. In Eevee, this start and end mapping will decide where you can see volume. Instead of calculating everything, it will only create volume within this range from where you are looking at. And Eevee does this by creating slices. The smaller the range, the more slices you will see, which means a more detailed volume. So I add a camera. Let's say this is our final render view. I'm going to measure the distance where I want the slices to start and end. Input those numbers here. These settings will help us to get the best from the volume shaders. This applies to the viewport as well, not just for the camera view. Now I hide the cloud volume. You can see our signal on both sides of the mesh, top and bottom. That's because earlier we UV unwrapped this using the project from view option. Now both top and bottom sides of the mesh is overlapping in the UV space. To remove the double, I create a mask using object coordinates. Use a separate XYZ and make a mask using less than method. Everything below this threshold value will be 1 or white. Now multiply it with our signal. And now the double is gone. Now I can remove all the black areas using a transparent shader. Add emission shader and a transparent shader and Ctrl Shift right click and drag from one to the other to add a mix node and plug our signal mask to the factor. Then I just change the HDRI, lower the density of the cloud and also add a noise to the cloud. I can use this emission shader to change the color and the strength. Now I import a bat signal light I created and replace our spotlight, the projection object. Since I didn't like the result Eevee created here, I also have a different shaped volume object parented with signal light. It's just math and vectors. So that's it. That's it for today's video. I hope you learned something cool, something new. I mean, that's what we like to do. We not only create stuff, we let you create with us. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to HellFX Learn so you won't miss out when the next video drops. So until next time,